How's it going, English 108? I hope everybody's doing well out there in online class world. It's that time of the semester. Things are really getting down to crunch time here, so I'm going to keep this relatively brief. As you've probably noticed, I've let off the gas a little bit in week 12, so you'll have an opportunity to revise your instructions if you're so inclined, which some of you will be, and to continue improving your fact sheet. So I'm going to say a couple of things about your fact sheet here, and then I'm going to let you get after it. So remember, the fact sheet assignment is really about challenging you to not only go out and find high quality information, but then to translate and repurpose and synthesize that high quality information for rapid comprehension of a very specific audience. So what on the surface probably seems like a relatively simple assignment is actually pretty layered and pretty sophisticated in some ways. So let me say a couple of things about that. First and foremost, I think people are really doing a nice job of keeping their fact sheets very readable. Only a few of you really, submitted text walls that were very hard to read and relatively impenetrable. So folks have, I think, been really careful in thinking about how to chunk up or categorize or compartmentalize information, and that really is one of the key parts of this assignment. There are three things that I want to bring to your attention that I think are worth noting. The first is just the allocation of space on the page. So as I've talked about, you've got about 93 square inches of space that you can deploy in any way that you see fit on a single standard sheet of paper. And so what that means is that we have to be pretty strategic and pretty intentional about what we put where, how much space we devote, and those types of things. And remember, the goal of this assignment and the purpose of this, the core purpose of the fact sheet, is really to give people the information they need to prevent health and safety related incidents on the job. So if you think about that, if that's the core messaging of the document, then the amount of space you allocate to that should be proportionate to that desire. So what I'm getting at is too many of you are spending the lion's share of the document giving definitions of the problem, giving these really granular insights to what it is, the mechanisms, the physiology, the anatomy, and that's fine, that's okay. But what you're then doing is you're only leaving a sliver of space to really focus on prevention. And at the end of the day, it's prevention that's most important, and that's the thing that we really sort of want to resonate in our reader's mind after they've put the sheet down. So I want you to think about that in revision. Frankly, are you giving enough space to prevention so that really becomes the core message of the document? And you'll know, because I've probably noted that on your sheet if you haven't. The second thing that I want you to really think about is being context specific. And I've stressed this, but many of you still need to work on that. I want you to provide the enough specific, tangible, actionable information in your fact sheet that somebody could use it to prevent injury in a very specific context. And so I want you to really think about what are the things that you can do in a particular environment, specific things you can do in a particular environment that allow you to prevent that specific problem. So if you're talking about carpal tunnel, I need to know the specific things in my actual day-to-day life that I can do, and as specifically as possible so that I have the highest likelihood of being able to do it. I want you to give me that really specific detail, so the next time I sit down to do my job, I'm doing it in a safer, more efficient, more ergonomic way. And so I want you to hold yourself accountable to that. And again, if you weren't doing this, there's a good chance I highlighted that for you. And this isn't just me being a pain, which I am. I'm pretty good at that. But it's really about your audience. And again, I can't stress enough, when a message isn't tailored to a specific audience, when it seems like a generic message that was broadcast, people tend to ignore it. Because it's not useful, maybe, because it doesn't resonate with what they do on a day-to-day basis. So the more specific your messaging is, the more immediately applicable it is, the more likely you are to get the sort of uptake that we're looking for. The third thing I want you to think about is images. So if you're incorporating an image, which many of you are choosing to do, and I think there's a good reason for that. Images are great because they provide visual interest, right? Immediately an image on a page looks more inviting, usually. And images are interesting, and people's attention and focus tends to gravitate towards those images. And that's good. But we have to be very intentional and strategic about this, because if we just incorporate an image for the sake of incorporating an image, we're not going to get the kind of mileage out of it or the kind of traction out of it that we need to. In other words, An image is super valuable because of the visual interest it attracts. So we need to make sure that it's communicating something equally important. So if you're going to incorporate an image, make sure that it's something that is in line with the two goals that I just referenced. That it helps us prevent, or that it helps us really create a theme of being specific to a context. So it's really tempting to go on to Google Images and search your term and find the first image that looks somewhat applicable, copy and paste it into your document, and feel better about yourself because you've broken up the page and provided some visual stimuli for somebody. But the thing to remember is that a picture's worth 1,000 words. Yes, that's probably true, but we want it to be worth the right 1,000 words. We want it to be worth the 1,000 words that are in line with our particular goals and purposes for creating a document. I think if you think about it that way and make sure that you're getting that extra mileage or traction out of that image, you're invariably going to increase the effectiveness of your document. And that's true of any technical document that we're doing. Remember, I create these assignments not with the expectation that you are necessarily ever going to have to write a fact sheet, but because I think it exercises certain muscles that are really important to technical writers in the workplace. In this particular instance, we're working on not only finding high-quality sources of information relevant to our audience, which you're doing, we're also thinking about how to synthesize and translate that information so that it's useful, accessible, and legible to our audience. We're also thinking about then how to put that on the page strategically and intentionally so that it moves the needle with our reader and that they can actually put it to work. And we're also thinking about how to incorporate other elements onto the page to really culminate in a successful message and campaign of promoting healthy and safe behavior in the workplace. So that's what we're up against. And so if you submitted an assignment into the feedback form, I've commented on it. If you were a little late, I'll be getting to yours as soon as possible. I'm going to spend a good portion of the rest of the day here looking at your instructions carefully and trying to give you not only an assessment, but also to give you feedback so that you can have an opportunity to revise if you're so inclined, because you will have time to do so. As I've indicated in the past, this course is relatively front-loaded, so we're going to coast into the finish line rather than sprinting, but that will give you opportunity to revisit any assignments that you want to address. So I really appreciate all the work you're doing, and I will catch up with you soon. As always, if you need anything, call, text, email, and I'll be as responsive as possible. Take care.